Welcome back to the channel. Thank y'all for hanging with me on this Wednesday. So November is a really good time to go fish flats. I think most people would agree with that or know that. But you will also find that a lot of subsurface baits are going to come back into play. Now, I want to talk about a little special thing that happens in the springtime and it also happens in the fall where bass get on a buzz bait, a spinner bait, and a swim jig simultaneously depending on the conditions you have. But there's just something about that thump, that profile, that kick, and basically what it's imitating that just gets bit in like these little windows in the year. So in the post spawn, early summertime, that swim jig's typically the best thing that you can throw. If the shadow's spawning, you have a lot of wind or you have a lot of clouds, a spinner bait, you can mix that in there with the swim jig. And then a buzz bait, when it really gets cloudy, when it really gets dark out there, you need something that even is going to appeal to those fish that just aren't going to be able to see that swim jig or feel that spinner bait. Now, here's the deal this time of year. It seems like the same thing happens. And I don't know if it's because of the cover, the grass is getting to be about the same length that it is in April and early May, or maybe it's just the way the bait is using the cover. They're about to head off and get out into the main lake, main river channel. You're catching a lot of fish that are close to the main river channel. So it just seems like the bait is there, it's up. Maybe the fish is more aggressive because of basically where it's at on the lake. I don't necessarily know, but it fishes a lot like the post spawn does, where you got to cover a lot of water and then you got to mix in those type baits. And I talk a lot about a fluke, and a fluke's really good post spawn bait, really good bait this time of year. So there's a lot of similarities in the way that you fish in the post spawn and how you're going to be fishing now. But I want to talk about something that always helps me decide what I need to be throwing in these tougher months. So I talk about the spinner bait, I talk about the swim jig, I talk about the buzz bait. And the common denominator in all three of those baits is when you're getting bites on them, you're good. You don't have to grab your topwater baits. You don't have to grab any other rod you have on your boat. You just can fish with those three baits. That's the beauty of the big fish, spinner bait, jig, and buzz bait. If you're not getting as many big bites as you would like, that's probably just you not being content with how tough the fishing is. And I do that too, but when they're biting a spinner bait, the law of averages will come into play and you will eventually catch the big fish that you need. So this is a really fun time to fish for the fact that you can catch them on some of the most enjoyable fishing subsurface baits that there are, and they're fairly easy to fish. You throw them out, you wind them back in. It doesn't really take a whole lot more in this scenario. So I like to do the Alabama shake a lot in the post spawn this time of year because the grass is probably a little bit shorter. Fish may not be up in the water column as much. I really like to just put a swim bait on the back. We're also getting close to the time of year where you really downsize and go to that small swim bait. So this is a good in between. I'm not going with that full big 6-inch hollow belly. I'm just throwing a skinny dipper. This is a big bite bait cane thumper. It's very similar to that. I really like these colors. I really like the action of this bait. And it's a very simple rig. It's a jig head with a swim bait on there, and you can catch a ton of fish on one swim bait. So start it out rigged up like that. Pretty simple rig, and then when they rip it off, the bait starts coming down the shank of your hook. Pinch some off, bite some off. Just keep threading it back on there. It's not a real particular specific. The presentation has to be perfect. You're throwing it out there, you're winding it back, you're fishing it fast. One thing I do like to do with this on a skinny dipper is trim off some of the bottom of that swim bait. So if you take some scissors and you just cut off some of the bottom, make it flat on the bottom, that's going to let that swim bait ride true, and it's going to keep that swim jig just riding horizontal. That's what you want. You want it to be nice and flat. You don't want it to basically sit at a weird angle. You want it to be nice and straight, nice and flat, and then it'll kind of roll side to side. This is a Dirty Jigs compact swim jig. I really like it this time of year. I really like it anytime that I'm throwing a swim bait on the back, because a swim bait is mostly what the fish are targeting. This is just a jig head with a good hook on it, and you got a little bit of that skirt material to make that profile a little bit better. Make it breathe and dance, and maybe get you a few extra bites. But the quality, anytime you're fishing a jig, when you're getting 7 or 8, 9 or 10 bites a day doing it, that's plenty to have a really good day. And that goes with the spinnerbait and the buzzbait as well. As long as I'm getting a couple handful of bites, I'm not worried about the quality. It will come, and that's all you need to know this time of year when you're fishing tougher days on these lakes that are fishing tough. So try that, guys. Good luck to you, and I'll see you on the water.